Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Reaching Your Golden State, where we explore the move from variability to a more stable and productive plant. My name's Duncan, and I'm the growth lead here in the software team at Mipac, and I'll be your host for the next 20 minutes. Before we dive in, just a quick bit of housekeeping. This session is being recorded and we'll share the link with you afterwards. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to drop them into the Q&A box. We'll follow up with answers after the session. And yes, we'll be sharing the slides too. Now, today's topic is one we know hits close to home for many of you. Whether you're in the control room, managing metallurgical performance, or overseeing production, process variability is something you deal with every single shift. It's often invisible, but it's always there, eroding performance, creating uncertainty, and making it harder to hit targets consistently. That's why we've asked Dom Stoll, our solutions manager, to walk through how leading sites are tackling this challenge with smarter thinking and better alignment across teams, and to provide the context for why we developed our Golden State application as a framework for this improved way of working. Dom brings deep experience working with processing plants across Australia, Africa, Asia and the CIS, and he's passionate about helping teams move from reactive firefighting to proactive control. We've got a full agenda for the next 20 minutes. I'm sure you're all as keen as I am to dive headfirst into the topics. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Dom to kick things off with a look at why process variability is still the silent killer in mining operations.
Thanks for the intro and setting the scene, Duncan. It's an absolute pleasure to share Mipac's perspective and my experience with you all today, starting with the hidden cost of variability. Back in 2007, when I started as a grad met in the Mount Isa Mines copper smelter, we were experiencing fluctuations in feed grades, throughput, deleterious minerals, and approaches to how the operators ran the furnaces. Fast forward almost 20 years later and not much has changed. The same fundamental challenges persist in concentrators, smelters and refineries the world over. Variability creeps in quietly. It doesn't always trigger alarms. Sometimes the fluctuations are there and sometimes they're not. So you react to symptoms rather than treating the root cause. Sometimes fluctuations overlap and combine to chip away at throughput, recovery, cost and stability. Over time, they compound to a point where achieving annual targets is no longer possible, the silent killer of performance. This is especially true in plants where data is fragmented. Instruments drift without regular calibration, lab results come in hours later, process trends are siloed, manual logs live in notebooks or spreadsheets, and the people who used to just know what's going on, they've retired or moved on. So what happens? Teams firefight. They rely on gut feel. They tweak set points based on yesterday's problems. And over time, this reactive culture becomes normal, even though it's costing hundreds of thousands in lost opportunity every day. This isn't about criticism. It's about recognizing that variability is a systems issue. It's built into the way we collect data, communicate across departments, and make decisions under pressure. The good news, it's fixable, but it starts with acknowledging that variability isn't just noise, it's a signal. And if we can learn to see it clearly, understand what's causing it, we can start to control it. Back at MIM, we controlled variability through process control standards, standard work instructions and training, but we have better tools now. In the next segment, we'll look at how operational alignment and a shared view of the process can help teams move from reactive to proactive. So let's move to the next section, getting everyone on the same page. I remember sitting in the morning production meeting when I was at Ernest Henry Mine and listening to the concentrator supervisor use the word stability more than 10 times in 2 minutes when explaining the previous 24 hours of missed production. As anyone that has operated a plant knows, process stability is a key driver to maximising production, enhancing safety and reducing waste. So how do you achieve process stability and the flow-on benefits to production, safety and efficiency? Managing variability is a good place to start on your pursuit of operational excellence. Process variability isn't just from all variability. Misalignment is also a major contributor. Different departments often operate with different priorities, different data sources, and different mental models of what good looks like. The metallurgy team might be focused on recovery, operations on throughput, and maintenance on asset health. All valid, but when those goals aren't aligned, you get friction, inefficiency, and missed production. Interdepartmental misalignment is compounded by intra-departmental misalignment. When you have multiple crews, each with multiple operators who do things slightly different and who all think their way is the best, you have no chance of achieving a stable circuit, let alone a stable plant. The problem is when everyone is doing something different, you never know what is the right way and what is the wrong way. At least when everyone does everything the same way, you will very quickly discover if something is incorrect. While it might take a little bit longer, when you do things the same way and evolve that standard approach over time, I promise you will discover the best way. When I was working at PSAR in the Philippines, we went through a process of collaborative learning. Not just metallurgists educating operators about the theory, but operators educating metallurgists about the practices and the reality. It was about getting everyone on the same page. We developed process maps, fishbones, cause and effect analyses, control plans, KPIs, process control standards, log sheets, dashboards, reports, procedures, and TAPs. It was an investment, but worth it because everyone's voice was heard and people could see their contributions codified and reflected in process control standards, procedures, and TAPs. The problem we couldn't solve at the time was all those artifacts were on paper or in cumbersome document management systems you couldn't quickly access. It required somebody checking the trends rather than being alerted to them. That is where visualizing the relevant information in real time becomes powerful. When frontline staff have access to real-time insights, contextualized alerts, and guided workflows, they can make better decisions. It's not about replacing experience, it's about accelerating it. You're giving people the confidence to act, not just react. Digital tools also help bridge the gap between experience levels. A seasoned metallurgist might intuitively spot a trend in the data and connect the root cause. That might be when they're looking at the screen, but a newer operator might need that insight surfaced more directly through color-coded alerts, notifications, or contextualized annotations. The key is not just having data, but making it usable. When you surface insights in a way that's intuitive and shared, you reduce noise, increase trust, and create a culture of alignment. In the next segment, we'll explore how digital tools can empower frontline operators, especially those who are still building their experience. Let's get on to the next section, bridging the experience gap. Let's talk about the people who live closest to the process, our operators. They're the ones in the field 12 hours a day, making real-time decisions, responding to alarms, adjusting set points, and keeping the plant running. I remember a grey-haired expat control room operator at Kansanshi smelter in Zambia. He used to come in on night shift, smile and nod during the handover, wait for the day shift crew to leave, open a few displays, adjust some settings, put his feet up and relax. Now to give that a little context, that was a highly automated smelter with the plant-wide control system designed by Mipac. And not all smelters will be in the same league. But here's the challenge. Not every operator has the same level of experience to get the plant running, humming, and transferring trouble knowledge isn't easy. The reality is we're operating in a time of changing societal expectations. It's harder and harder to attract and retain people in mining. When experienced operators retire or move on, they take years of intuition with them. And newer operators, even if they're sharp, often don't know what to do. They don't have the same gut feel for how the plant behaves under different conditions. That's where variability creeps in. Not because people aren't trying, but because they're working without a clear decision support framework. Imagine coming off the farm or out of the big city and into a complex processing plant where the crew is understaffed and you're expected to pull your weight from the get-go. That's the reality for a lot of frontline teams with the amount of turnover we have in mining. They're expected to make fast, high-impact decisions without limited context, fragmented data, and little guidance. That is where intuitive tools can make a huge difference. For example, instead of a generic alarm that says high pH, imagine a system that shows where the deviation started, what conditions contributed, how other process outcomes might be affected by pulling different levers, and what similar events looked like last week. That's decision support. It's not automation, it's augmentation. And it's not just about the tools, it's about the culture. When the SAG mill stops turning, there are multiple disciplines that can play a role to get the plant running again, not just operations. When operators feel supported, when they know their voice is heard, they're more engaged. They ask better questions, they take ownership, and they become part of a continuous improvement loop, not just the last line of defense. To sum up, we can't expect to accelerate closing the experience gap just via training, but we can empower inexperienced operators with the right digital tools. And when you do that, you unlock a huge source of untapped value. Next, we'll look at how to turn siloed data into actionable insight. Let's move on to the next section, from siloed data to actionable insight. So far we've talked about insights and decision support, but that's not possible if your data is stuck in silos. Most of the plants I walk into have a control system that stores alarm and events, a historian that stores time series process information, an SQL database that stores assays, an ERP that stores financial information, a whiteboard full of tasks, a book of operator observations, and a collection of fragile Excel files that struggle to do everything from run the morning production meeting to perform the end-of-month metal accounting. A huge amount of data is collected, but it's often scattered across different timeframes, formats, and platforms that don't talk to each other. That makes it hard to connect the dots and even harder to act on the insights. Here's a common scenario. Flotation recovery is dropping, but the OSA is offline because the met tech forgot to complete a routine task, and the lab feed assays won't be back for another couple of hours. The mining department flagged a change in blend on night shift, but the message is buried in the paper logbook. By the time somebody pieces it all together, the opportunity to intervene has passed. It's not just about having data, it's about making it usable, timely, and contextual. Contextualized data means you're not just looking at numbers, you're seeing relationships. You can trace a change in recovery back to a reagent dosing event, or connect a deterioration in SAG mill power draw to a missed media addition. It's about turning raw data into operational insight. Digital tools that can integrate multiple data sources play an integral role. When lab data, control system data, and manual inputs all feed into a single view, you eliminate blind spots, you reduce lag, and you empower teams to act in the moment, not after the fact. Digital tools allow you to structure data around assets and processes, so you're not just looking at data, you're obtaining insight. Digital tools allow you to build templates, apply analytics, and visualize performance in a way that's meaningful to operators, maintainers, engineers, and managers alike. This kind of integration doesn't have to be complex. It just has to be intentional. And when done right, it becomes a foundation for proactive control and continuous improvement. In the next segment, we'll explore how this data foundation can help shift production meetings from reactive to proactive. Now for one of my favourite topics, from reactive to proactive. Let's shift gears and talk about mindset, specifically being reactive versus proactive. No longer being addicted to the adrenaline of responding to a crisis or celebrating that breakdown hero. Instead, being structured and forward-looking. As a Met Super, the most frustrating thing was arriving in the morning and discovering that the plant had underperformed all night because a problem was not identified or the front line were not enabled to solve the problem in the moment. At many sites, that realization doesn't occur until the morning production meeting. Instead of the morning production meeting being proactive and future-focused, these meetings are dominated by yesterday's problems. We ask questions about what went wrong, why something didn't get done, and what needs fixing. Sometimes the questions can't even be answered because the information isn't available. Too often, these problems could have been solved in the moment and don't need a collection of different disciplines coming up with a solution. To be future-focused, we need time and space. So the question is, how do we make these meetings forward-looking? The answer is solving problems before or as they happen. A common approach is short interval control, or SIC. The typical SIC approach breaks shifts into small time blocks of approximately 2 to 4 hours, encourages teams to get together, assess performance, identify deviations, and take corrective actions. However, today's digital tools no longer require a defined time period and a common meeting place. Instead of waiting 4 or even 2 hours to fix an issue, today's digital SIC tools allow teams to course correct in real time. But for digital SIC tools to work, you need interoperability and visibility. You need to know what's happening now, not just what happened yesterday. That means having access to live data, contextual insights, and clear performance targets. When we solve problems in the moment, we no longer need to spend time in the morning production meeting talking about the past, and instead can focus on the future. How do we catch up on our annual targets? Even better, how do we exceed our annual targets? We've seen this result in unexpected, intangible benefits. All of a sudden, engagement increases. Crews start working as a team. Operators start providing constructive feedback because they feel heard. The flywheel starts to turn and you're on your way to establishing a continuous improvement culture. This kind of cultural shift doesn't happen overnight, but when it does, it creates a more agile, resilient operation, one that's focused on improvement, not just accountability. In our final segment, we'll wrap up by asking, what does operational excellence look like for your plant? And how do you define your own golden state? Now for the million-dollar question. What's your golden state? We've covered a lot today, from the hidden cost of variability to the power of insights, decision support, and proactive planning. But here's the real question. What does operational excellence look like for your plant? Every plant is different ore bodies, different teams, different constraints, but the principles are the same: clarity, alignment, and confidence in decision making. So ask yourself, do you know what good looks like for your plant? Is the necessary information available to the right people when they need it? Can your team see the same version of reality? Are your operators empowered to act, not just react? Do you celebrate the breakdown hero or the team that never has a breakdown? Are your meetings driving improvement or just reporting issues? Defining your own golden state means setting a clear vision for performance and building the systems and culture to support it. It's not about chasing perfection, that's impossible, but excellence isn't. Excellence is about knowing what matters, measuring it well, and acting on it consistently. Most sites define their golden state in terms of uptime, grade, recovery, throughput, energy usage, water consumption, and consumable spend. For some sites, these variables are more important than others. Guaranteed that every site will have different targets. The point is, they're yours to define. And once you do, you can start aligning your people, processes, and tools to achieve them. If you're curious about how other sites are tackling these challenges, or if you'd like to explore what your golden state might look like, we'd love to chat. Thanks for joining me today. I'll now hand you back to Duncan to wrap things up.
Dom, that was very interesting. Thank you very much for those explanations and great insights from your career. Now, we do have some questions that have started to come through. I'm going to start with the first one. How do you explain short interval control to someone who's never heard of it before?
Nice one. How to explain short interval control. I usually say it's about shrinking the feedback loop. Instead of waiting for the daily production meeting, SIC lets you spot issues and act on them during the shift. It's structured, repeatable, and designed to keep your process on track throughout the shift, not just day by day.
Another question for you, Dom. This one I think is probably a bit more specific. How do you choose which metrics to monitor in a short interval control cycle?
Good question. Choosing metrics. I always suggest to start with your process outcomes, recovery, throughput, energy use, and work backwards to the drivers. You want metrics that respond quickly to changes and are within the team's control. If it's not actionable, it's not a good SIC metric.
Thanks, Dom. Thanks for the explanation. Another one, it's actually more applicable to our own MPA Golden State application, and that is, how does Golden State support short interval control in practice?
How does Golden State support SIC? Golden State takes the SIC framework from every 4 hours to real time and gives you the visibility you need. You can see where to focus resources based on which process outcomes are trending at a range. You can decide which process drivers to adjust to get the process back on track. It's not just a dashboard, it's a decision support tool. And because it's visual, everyone can understand it quickly.
Another question that's related to some of the work we do with Pi. That is, how is Golden State different from what we already do in Pi Vision?
Yes, we get this question quite a bit. How's Golden State different to Pi Vision? Pi Vision is a powerful tool for visualizing data. There's no doubt about it, but it's not designed to guide decision making. Golden State goes beyond plotting trends. It contextualizes deviation, shows the impact of process drivers, and helps teams understand what actions to take. It's purpose-built for minerals processing, so you don't need to create custom dashboards or rely on internal experts to maintain them. It will last beyond the capability you have in the team at the moment.
Thanks, Dom. And thanks again to everyone who joined us today. If anything we've covered resonated with you, or if you're facing similar challenges at your site, we'd love to continue the conversation. You can reach out to Dom directly for a deeper technical chat, or connect with me if you'd like to explore how we can support your team more broadly. If you'd like to see our MPA Golden State application in action, let me know and I can set this up for you. Our contact details are on the screen now, and we'll also include them in the follow-up email with the recording and slides. Thanks again for your time. And here's to your move from variability to a Golden State stable, productive plant.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.